Good morning. Welcome to Kitely and the Learn English Network. It's Lynn here, and it's the book reading session. And I think we're going to finish the book today. I think. I said that last week, but I'm pretty certain we will today. April and I were talking earlier in Discord this morning for Monday Live Chat. I think you missed it, Moz, when we were talking about what we might read next. So our next reading will probably be a poem or a short story just to clear this book out of our minds. And then we'll start reading The Little Prince. Okay? I don't know if you've ever read it, but we'll read it in English. Okay? It is out of copyright, I checked. Yes, well, it is a classic, and if you haven't read it, you should, and if you have read it, it's well worth reading again, okay? I actually did a session on it in my German lessons. They did a whole section on The Little Prince, so maybe I'll repurpose my German lesson and we can use some of the questions they asked me in that. In Polish and in French. Great. Okay. Well, we can add English to the list. I've read it several times, but only in English. Maybe I should read it in German.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I had also a musical. It was quite good. We did it during our French course. Didn't we, April?
I think so, but I forget that.
Yeah, about a scene with the fox and so on. Yeah.
But we haven't read the book, eh?
Not the hell, of course not, but it's not long.
Now, you say of course not. I don't understand that, because if you're going to read a book, read the whole book. I don't like excerpts. But yes,
you know, we in this I meant we don't read hell books. They are usually passages and videos, and then we move on. It's something different. It's not that advanced as your course.
It's not a course. It's just book reading. I love it.
Book reading, yeah.
Talking about book reading, let's get on with it then. So, April, you're first up. If you could start reading, here's your text, okay? Ooh. April, are you with us?
Oh, sorry, I'm unmuted.
You see, even when you've been coming to sessions for years, it can still happen.
Yeah, I was talking, and oh no, I wasn't talking.
Well, you were,
Okay.
but we couldn't hear you, so you'll have to start again, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Uh-huh. Look here, Cyril, she said, sticking on her hat with long, sharp, violet-headed pins. I leave you in charge. Stay in the dressing room. You can pretend to be swimming boots in the bath or something. Say I gave you leave, but stay there, with the door on the landing open. I've locked the other. And don't let anyone go into my room. Remember, no one knows the jewels are there except me and all of you and the wicked thieves who put them there. Robert, you stay in the garden and watch the windows. If anyone tries to get in, you must run and tell the two farm men that I will send up to wait in the kitchen. I'll tell them there are dangerous. I'll tell them there are dangerous characters about. That's true enough. Now remember, I trust you both, but I don't think they'll try it till after dark, so you're quite safe. Goodbye, darlings. And she locked her bedroom door and went off with the key in her pocket. The children could not help admiring the dashing and decided way in which she had acted. They thought how useful has been in how useful been I don't know been in organizing escape from some of the tight places in which they had found themselves of late in consequence of their ill-timed wishes. She's a born general, said Cyril, but I don't know what's going to happen to us. Even if the girls were to hunt for that old Samiat and find it and get it to take the jewels away again, Mother would only think we hadn't looked out properly and let the burglars sneak in and get them. Or else the police will think we've got them, or else that she's been fooling them. Oh, it's a pretty decent, average, ghastly mess this time, and no mistake. He savagely made a paper boat and began to float it in the bath as he had been told to do. Robert went into the garden and sat down on the worn yellow grass with his miserable head oh, between his helpless hands. Oh, be right back. I can't hear anything. Savagely. Okay.
Yes, Professor Higgins. Oh, sorry. Huh? Uh, as Professor Higgins said, we all were savages, more or less. Big Marion.
Float, 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 float. I was a little bit confused with that word. Mm, what was it again? Leave. Say I gave you leave. Say I let you. I give you permission to leave. Actually, he wants to say, or she wants. Ah, okay. Nice. Okay, thank you.
Yes. Hello, hello, yes.
Okay. Okay. Robert went into the garden and sat down on the warm yellow grass with his miserable head between his helpless hands. Auntie and Jane whispered together in the passage downstairs, where the coconut matting was, with the hole in it that you always caught your foot in if you were not careful. Martha's voice could be heard in the kitchen, grumbling loud and long. "It's simply quite too dreadfully awful," said Auntie. "How do you know all the diamonds are there too? If they aren't, the police will think Mother and Father have got them and that they've only given up some of them for a kind of desperate blind. And they'll be put in prison, and we shall be branded outcasts, and the children of felons. And it won't be at all nice for Father and Mother either," she added, by a candid afterthought. "But what can we do?" asked Jane. "Nothing. At least we might look for the summit again. It's a very, very hot day. He may have come out to warm that whisker of his." "He won't give us any more beastly wishes today," said Jane flatly. "He gets crosser and crosser every time we see him. I believe he hates having to give wishes." Auntie had been shaking her head gloomily. Now she stopped shaking it so suddenly that it really looked as though she were pricking up her ears. "What is it?" asked Jane. "Oh, have you thought of something?" At the end.
Very good, well done. I suddenly realised I'd muted my voice in the stream earlier, so it might have been a bit of a quiet bit, but never mind. It would just be April repeating the words. Very nicely read, well done. I would say just that one little bit, and you know why I'm going to point it out.
Yeah, probably. Ah, yes. Pricking up her ears.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know. Yes and yes. I have it in my notes. I have.
Yeah, it's so
I
easy.
admit.
And I'm just being very fussy in even pointing it out. People would know that you didn't mean years, you meant ears. Okay, but pricking up her
But
ears.
if I read it in the sentence, it happens. Yeah, but I know it.
Native speakers do it too, and especially when you're reading out loud, you probably wouldn't do it if you said it naturally. Oh, prick up your ears. Not her. I'm not sure how you did it, but you managed it. Her ears is a lot a lot more easy to do than other when you've got Y at the end. Yeah, Y ears. Why years? I can understand, but her years, it came across really strongly as her years. But there you go, that's English for you. There's no sense to it. But that's all, and I was being very fussy in correcting you. Okay. Okay, so who's next? Let's see. It is Moz. So Moz, bear with me 1 second. I will give you the text. Now remember, don't read out the square brackets. Okay, where it says page, whatever it is. That's just the page ending. Okay. So just ignore anything in square brackets. Moz, as soon as you're ready.
Okay, it's hard to scroll up and down. Okay, at a brisk trot, she led the way to the sand pit. Oh, joy! There. Okay. Our one chance, cried Anthea dramatically. The last forlorn hope. Come on. At a, at a brisk trot, she led the way to the sand pit. Oh, joy! there was the Samid, basking in a golden sandy hollow and preening its whiskers happily in the glowing afternoon sun. The moment it saw them, it ar- whisked round and began to burrow, and it evidently preferred its own company to theirs. But Anthea was too quick for it. She caught it by its furry shoulders gently but firmly and held it. "Here, none of that," said the Summit. "Leave, leave go of me, will you?" But Anthea held him fast. "Dear, kind, darling Samoyed," she said breathlessly. "Oh yes, it's all very well. It's sad you want another wish. I wish I expect, but I can't keep on slaving from morning till night giving people their wishes. I must have some time to myself." "Do you hate giving wishes?" asked Anthea gently, and her voice trembled with excitement. "Of course I do," it said. Leave go of me, or I'll bite." "I really will. I mean it." "Oh well, if you choose to risk it." Anthea risked it and held on. Oh no, I'm lost. Okay. "Look here," she said. "Don't bite me. Listen to reason. If you'll only do what we want today, well, what we want today, we'll never ask you for another wish, as long as we live." The Samed was much moved. Uh, okay.
So good, well done. And I would say there's just two little words here and three words in total, but occasionally you say it correctly and occasionally you don't. But let's look at the first two. Okay. The first one is to burrow, not borrow, burrow. You've got to get an sound. Burrow.
Burrow.
Burrow. Yeah,
Uh.
this means to dig a hole, to bury yourself. We've got to bury and to burrow. To bury. So rabbits burrow. Yeah, rabbits burrow. There.
Borrow. Okay, borrow.
Burrow, not borrow. To borrow from the bank. Yeah, to borrow from the bank or the library. Yeah, and to burrow your way into a
Borrow the
hole.
bank lever. Okay, let me try again. To borrow from the bank library. To burrow your way into a hole.
That's better. To burrow your way. You really got to get that burrow. Okay, and especially because we
Okay.
don't say burrow as often as we say borrow. Borrow's much more common word than burrow. But if you're talking about animals, they often burrow. They live in a burrow. Okay. Okay. So the next one again, it's the sound. Furry.
Furry.
Yes,
Fur.
his fur was furry, and he was in
Forgot.
a fury. Try that.
Okay, furry. His fur was furry, but he was in a fury.
Yay! Well done. Good
I,
job.
I just read it.
Very
I know
good.
this word.
Awesome, awesome. And then the last one, as I say, occasionally you said it correctly, but it is said. Yeah, said sounds like said. Okay, not sad.
Sad.
Yeah, he.
Okay,
So try
sad.
this. Try that sentence. Oh, can you hear me? Oh, I think Moz has lost voice. Or I have. I'm not sure which. Dee-dee-dee. Okay, it's not just me. Good, thank you, Eleanor. Okay, so he said he was sad. Oh, there you are. Okay, try again.
Okay. He said he was sad.
Very good. That's it. Good. Well done. Okay, so next person to read is Shiny. So Shiny, again, I will give you your text. Okay, there's your text. Shiny.
Okay, thank you. I'd do anything, it said in a tearful voice. I'd almost burst myself to give you one wish after another. As long as I held out, if you'd only never asked me to do it after today. If you knew how I hate to blow myself out with other people's wishes, and how frightened I am always that I shall strain a muscle or something, and then to wake up every morning and know you've got to do it. You don't know what it is. You don't know what it is. You don't. Its voice cracked with emotion, and the last don't was a quick squeak. Anthea set it down gently on the sand. It's all over now, she said soothingly. We promised faithfully never to ask for another wish after today. Well, go ahead, said the summit. Let's get it over. How many can you do? I don't know, as long as I can hold out. Well, first, I wish Lady Chittenden may find she's never lost her jewels. The summit blew itself out, collapsed, and said, Done. I wish, said Anthea more slowly. Mother meant. Get to the police. Done, said the creature after the proper interval. I wish, said Jane suddenly, Mother could forget all about the diamonds. Done, said the summit, but its voice was weaker. Would you like to rest a little? Asked Anthea considerately.
Very good. Well done. Okay, just bear with me 1 second. That last word. It's always the last word. So, nicely read. Let's have a look at the individual words. Okay. So, the first one is soothingly. Soothingly.
Soothingly.
That's it. I mean, your pronunciation was fine, but you hesitated a bit. And it's adverbs. Okay, I don't know what it is about adverbs, but all of you seem to struggle a little bit when it's just got a ly on the end. You're like, oh no, it's too long. So, soothingly. And then faithfully. It's a long faith. You gotta have faith, faith, faith. Faithfully. Try it.
Faithfully.
That's it. And then interval. It's a v sound, not f. V. Interval.
Interval.
Yeah, interval. Interval.
Interval.
That's better, yeah. There's a little bit less on the t, but you've got it. Interval. Let's have an interval. Okay? And then again, it's that adding the ly. I think you just panic. Your brain goes, well, considerately. Considerately.
Considerately.
Yeah, so if you say to somebody, oh, you look tired, would you like a cup of tea and a sit down? That would you being considerate. You might say it in that voice, that tone, considerately, okay? Any questions? Then Vinay, if you're ready to read.
Yes.
Okay, let me give you your text. Hang on, I'll cut it up again.
Yes,
Okay.
please. Yes, please, said the Samir. And before we go any further, will you wish something for me? Can't you do wishes for yourself? Of course not, it said. We were always expected to give each other our wishes. Not that we had any to speak of in the good old Megatherium days. Just wish, will you, that you may never be able, any of you, to tell anyone a word about me. Why? Asked Jane. Why? Don't you see? If you told grown-ups I should have no piece of my life, they had get hold of me and they wouldn't wish silly things like you do, but real earnest things, and the scientific people would hit on some way of making things last after sunset, as likely as not, and they would ask for it graduated income tax and old age pensions, and manhood suffrage and free secondary education and dull things like that, and get them and keep them, and the whole world would be turned topsy-turvy. Do wish it quick. And Anthea repeated Samit's wish, and it blew itself out to a larger size than they had yet seen it attain. And now it says as it collapsed, can I do anything more for you? Just one thing, and I think that clears everything up. Doesn't it, Jen? I wish Martha to forget about the diamond ring, and the mother to forget about the keeper cleaning the windows. It's like the brass bottle, said Jen. Yes, I'm glad we read that, or I should never have thought of it. Thank you. See.
Oh, okay, sorry, I've muted my mic on the stream again. So you've got the verb to say, then we've got he says, and then we've got the past tense, he said. Okay, say, says, said. Do you want to try it? Let's try and think of a sentence I can put it in. Politicians often say things they don't mean, he said. Okay, try that. Politicians often say things they don't mean, he said.
Politicians often say things they don't mean, he said.
That's it, he said. Yeah, it's like there's an E there. Okay. Then the next one is suffrage.
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 Yeah, it's a funny one. It is like fridge, but suffrage. Okay, and it's suffrage is the right to vote. Okay. Suffrage just means the right to vote in elections. Adult suffrage, universal suffrage. Everybody gets a vote. One man, one vote. One person, one human, one vote. Okay, that's suffrage. Okay, it's a funny word, but trust me, that's how it's pronounced, suffrage. Then to wish. Oh, I wish, I wish, I wish. Try it. Wish.
Wish.
That's it. To wish. I wish I could fly. And then the last one, okay, so the verb is to read, but the past tense of to read is read, like read. Okay? So when he says, I'm glad we read it, they have already read the book. I'm glad we read that, or I should never have thought of it. So not I'm glad we read that, I'm glad we read every week. Okay, that's a present simple. We do it every week. I'm glad we meet up here to read every week, but I'm glad we've read this book. So it becomes the past tense. Read. Okay? Try it.
Read.
That's it, yeah. And really, when you're reading it, you do have to just get it from the context. Is this sentence talking about something they do all the time, something they're doing now, or is it something they did in the past? Any questions? Okay, then I will give some little short bits for everybody. Okay, so April, here's your little bit.
Okay, thank you. Now, said the Samiat faintly, I'm almost worn out. Is there anything else? No, only thank you kindly for all you've done for us, and I hope you'll have a good long sleep, and I hope we shall see you again someday. Is that a wish? It said in a weak voice. Yes, please, said the two girls together. Thank you.
Very good, well done. Nicely read. No corrections. And let me just get this for you. Eleanor, your bit.
Okay. Then for the last time in the story, they saw the summit blow itself out and collapse suddenly. It nodded to them, blinked its long snake's eyes, burrowed, and disappeared, scratching fiercely to the last, and the sun closed over it. I hope we've done right, said Jane. I'm sure we have, said Antia. Come on home and tell the boys.
Very good. Perfectly read again. See, it's much easier when you're only reading short bits.
Yes, short time for concentration, so.
Exactly. Okay, so next, Moz, your bit.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. Anthea found Cyril grooming over his paper boats and told him Jane told Robert. The two tales were only just ended when Mother walked in, hot and dusty. She explained that as she was being driven into Rochester to buy the girls' autumn school dresses, the axle had broken, and but for the narrowness of the lane and the high soft hedges, she would have been thrown out. As it was, she was not hurt, but she had had to walk home, and oh, my dearest dear chicks, she said, I am simply dying for a cup of tea. Do run and see if the water boils. So you see it's all right. Jane whispered. She doesn't remember. No more does, Martha, said Anthea, who had been to ask after the state of the kettle. The end.
Very good, well done. Just two little words. Okay. The first one is part of the car. Okay. The axle. Axle.
Axel.
Axle,
I thought
yes.
it's Axel.
Yeah,
Oh,
no. The axle, if you have a look at the car in outside, the one that's burning, you have to look under the car to see the axle. It's the bit that the wheels turn
Okay.
on, okay? You don't want that to break.
I thought it's Axel. I think my screen has dust.
Yeah, axe is
Okay.
axe, okay? But axle, the axle. And then kettle, the kettle.
Cattle. Where did I learn that word? It's cattle.
Cattle is lots of cows and bulls are cattle. But the kettle is, if you look at the front of the fire, there's a kettle in front of the fire next to the iron. Okay, the kettle.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Cattle,
You're
cattle.
welcome. That's it. Okay, but they look very similar, and so I can understand why you confused it. Okay, so the last bit, shiny, your bit. Okay.
As okay. As as the servants sat at their tea, Bill, the gamekeeper, dropped in. He brought the welcome news that Lady Chittendon's diamonds had not been lost at all. Lord Chittendon had taken them to be reset and cleaned, and the maid who knew about it had gone for a holiday, so that was all right. I wonder if we ever shall see the summit again, said Jane wistfully as they walked in the garden while Mother was putting the lamb to bed. I'm sure we shall, said Cyril, if you really wished it. We've promised never to ask it for another wish, said Anthea. I never want to, said Robert earnestly.
Very good, well done. Okay, just two words. The first one, let's just do the whole sentence actually, because it's. Let me just find it. Hang on. Okay. Here it is. No, that's not it. Oh yeah. Da. So let's take it from the sentence. The maid who knew about it had gone for a holiday. So you've got to get about it. About it. Okay, you've got to get the T's in. Try it.
About.
Yeah, but try the whole sentence.
The maid who knew about it had gone for a holiday.
That's better. Good. Well done. Good. I mean, some people, dialects in the UK, they do drop the T. I asked you about it earlier, but it's not good English. Told you about it. But it doesn't sound nice, honestly. It's much better to say I told you about it. Very good. And then shall, not shall, shall. Shall we? It's very British English. Americans very rarely use shall, but we still use it in the UK. So it is one you need to know how to say. Shall. Try it.
Shall.
Shall. Shall we? Shall we do that? Shall we finish?
Shall.
That's better. That's better. Good. Well done. Okay, so I'll read the very last bit. Okay. They did see it again, of course, but not in this story. And it was not in a sandpit either, but in a very different place. It was in a... But I must say, no more. And that's it. We finished. Well done. The end. Yes. Ta-da! Told you we'd do it, April. I told you we'd do it. If I keep saying that every week, I'll be right one week.
It is still not 96%, so I didn't know that it is finished.
Oh yeah, no.
The last
I think the
4%
last
is
bit
more
is a
information.
lot of,
Yeah.
it's a lot of stuff about Project Gutenberg. I think probably if you've got that, or about the writer, or yeah. But I hope you all enjoyed it. Good, good. Good. It's a lovely book. And as I say, next week I think what we'll do is we'll maybe read a short story, maybe a Halloween story or something. And then after that we'll start The Little Prince, I think. Okay? If you have any comments or suggestions, don't forget. I mean, I make these statements, but it's only for lack of input. So if you've got any comments, just remember you can put them in the forum or send me a message. If you don't want it to be public, that's fine too. And if you want to check your corrections for the whole of the book, they're all there in that part of the forum. Okay. And of course, Eleanor, did you manage to update? I didn't check today. Did you manage to update your document?
Yes,
You got the
it's
link?
updated. I did it last week.
Awesome.
I will give you a link, just a moment.
I think I've got it here, but oh yes,
Yeah,
I've got
it's
Here
here.
it is. Yeah, that's it. Good. So if you're stuck on any of the more unusual words, then Eleanor's got your back. Absolutely got your back. Okay. Any questions before we finish? I mean, we can finish early, or we can carry on chatting for a quarter of an hour if you want. I don't mind. I've got the time set aside. Do you think it was? Do you think they will? They've learnt their lesson about making wishes? Because none of them worked out really, did they? And I was really worried when I was a child, I remember, when they wished that the mother would never reach her destination, because that could have ended so badly.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, she might have never reached her destination, and she might and forgotten all about it because she was dead. Very dangerous. Wishes are very dangerous. Be careful what you wish for. We have that as a saying. Yeah? Be careful what you wish for.
It's look romantic to fly, but afterwards it turns out that it's not that good.
Yeah, you end up stuck on a belfry. I saw that, yes. Oh dear. Well, they were lucky
I
the
think
wings didn't
idea.
turn to stone, still attached to them as well. If everything that they wished for turned to stone, that could have happened too. But I think they'd already sorted that out in an earlier wish. But they tried to be clever each time, and it was always about money, really, wasn't it? It was always, you know, every other wish seemed to be for money or stuff.
Ancient pieces of gold, so it's also not very good.
That's right. But I
If you are
loved the
not an
bit.
archaeologist.
I loved the bit that the Sami had said at the end, that the grown-ups would wish for suffrage and free education and health service. It's very tongue-in-cheek because, of course, we've got all those things in the UK at the moment. Whether they'll last much longer, there's nobody's. It's anybody's guess. But yes, I thought that was very funny.
But I have seen a new article in Guardian about Oxbridge, and fewer students from not privileged backgrounds are admitted, so
Yep.
it's still very posh.
Oh, very.
It's rather
I mean, when
yeah.
I say to you there is still a class system in the UK, I'm not joking. It is still there. It's always been there. And anybody who pretends otherwise doesn't really... is probably at the top end of the class. The people at the top end think it's a classless society. It's not. They're just privileged and they don't... yeah.
They were mainly student, young children educated in independent schools, so-called public schools, so
That's
they are
right.
simply better, I guess. So
No, they're not. It's just a sense of entitlement that has pervaded British society for a long time. You go to
But
this school, you're entitled to
uh-huh.
that education, you're entitled to that job, you're entitled to that amount of money, and that amount of happiness. It's an entitlement. Um,
But I thought they are simply doing better in the exams. That's why I
well, yes,
meant,
because
isn't it that?
they cram for them. They
Um,
have more help. It doesn't mean they are better.
and
It just means they get better grades. But there are a lot of very clever people who don't get good grades because the education is, I'm afraid, quite poor. I mean, my husband's quite horrified sometimes when I make statements that I learnt at school, because I went to a comprehensive school, and people assume from my voice that I'm some kind of hoity-toity public school person. I'm not. I went to a comprehensive school. There's nothing wrong with it, but it was a rubbish education. And I'll say things and he'll say, what? I said, well, that's what they taught me at school. He's like, no, it's nonsense. But even he agrees. At his school, he was taught things that were nonsense too. But they tended to be things about empire and because he went to public school.
historical, I see.
Yes, historically inaccurate stuff, or things that weren't discussed. They were just brushed over about the role of Britain in history, etc. But there's no excuse anymore because it's all on the internet. You just have to use your common sense filter. When you don't have that when you're a child at school, you tend to trust what you read in books. You tend to trust what your teachers tell you. But I think as an adult, there's no excuse for not informing yourself and using a common sense filter to get rid of
I
the
was,
rubbish, get to the truth.
I must say I was much amused when I read that Australians discovered that the continent hadn't been discovered but colonized, but it's not bad that they did notice.
Well, I hope. I think with the internet, more truths are coming out, more a different way of thinking about these things, and a look at history that doesn't paint you as some kind of great explorer and hero, and the people in the past was, these wonderful people. They were just humans, and they wanted a better life, as we all do. But when you're taught at school that they were these great heroes of exploration, and you don't look at the negative effect they had on the world, you're lying to yourself. You're being lied to. But I'm not saying you should go around with a great feeling of guilt for what your ancestors did. None of us can affect what happened in the past.
Not direct ancestors, yeah. But it's the same in our case. For example, we were taught that Polish state in 17th century was rather tolerant, and but in fact it was because king's power was very weak, and they were simply private armies that were really cruel. Used torches and devastated the whole regions, in particular in the west, in the east, and but it was not the state army.
No.
So there were legends that Pearls were a kind of knights, very noble and that sort of thing. But in fact, there were
just as brutal as everybody else.
States in the state.
Yeah.
States in the state. So the state itself was weak, but the nobles, as I told you, they could afford hiring soldiers and had no scruples.
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, often his power does that, I'm afraid. And you can't
nuance,
get much more powerful
yeah.
than having a load of weapons. Yes, it's a shame, but I mean, we've got the same problem worldwide, I think. But I think with the internet now, we've got a better chance of informing ourselves correctly, or as correctly as you can. What is it they say? Um, history is written by the winners. At the moment, it's quite fun in the UK because there's two um, very, very popular historical TV shows, TV dramas on. One's Victoria. I do recommend it if you. It's not fluffy. It's a bit fluffy, but it's about the young Queen Victoria, and there was a huge hoo-ha last week or the week before in the UK because they covered the famine, the Irish famine, and they covered it in a more historically accurate way than most people had been taught it, and people were shocked at what had happened and how it had happened and how people were treated, and it was amusing their reaction. And at the moment there's another one out, and I think it's called Forks or something like that. What's it called? It's a brand new one. It only I can't watch it because it's too brutal. But it's a new Gunpowder. It's called Gunpowder. But I've heard it's very brutal, so I've not watched it because that kind of thing gives me nightmares. But they've again shown it much more about why Guy Fawkes and the plotters reacted the way they did and did what they, or tried to do what they tried to do. It's seemingly the torture scenes, and back then, it's like you said, poetry, torture was a weapon used, and the different ways of killing people back then was quite obscene. Yeah, totally obscene. But what's really funny about Gunpowder, have you heard of Kit Harington?
My name disgraced. My friends and family tortured.
Okay, so Kit Harington, do you know the name? No? Oh, okay, I thought you might, Moz. Game of Thrones. He plays Jon Snow in Game of Thrones. He's playing Robert Catesby, who was the main. He was the mastermind behind the gunpowder plot. Okay, I think you can probably see. Yeah, you can read about it here. Okay, if you're interested. Okay. Oh, I don't visit those. We've got them in the UK too, Eleanor. We've got them in. They have the dungeons, the London dungeons, open, and it's just like a horror show. And when we went to, it was in France, Carcassonne in France. They've also got them there, and say, come and have a look at the torture. And I'm like, I don't want to. It's I know it happened, but it's in the past. I don't. It's not entertainment to me. It's not something you should have as as a ooh, how gruesome kind of. It's a yuck. Gloomy places. That's right. It's not a movie, Mars. Game of Thrones is a whole TV series. There's 6 of them so far. I think they're brilliant. I personally think one of the best dramas on telly. Well, I'm talking about the ones they show in these. I mean, and they've been opened up for tourists. It's like a voyeuristic look at history, and to me, yuck, 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 yuck. No need to shout, April.
Yeah, sorry, but I couldn't write. I couldn't type with one hand.
I don't think so.
I do not.
If you were to see, I mean, certainly in the UK, the rack, the thumbscrews, the instruments of torture that were in use are, probably been replaced by truncheons and electric shocks. But one hopes not. Hopes not. But certainly, I don't see them as something for tourists to gawk at. I think they're something that should be, vilified, and we should be. Not. It's a bit like going to places like Auschwitz. You don't go there for because it's a tourist destination. You go there to inform yourself, and I believe the same of these historical incidents in our past. They're not tourist attractions to me. It's like yuck. But anyway, unless there's any other questions or anything anybody would like to anything else to say something else, I'm going to love you and leave you. But you can carry on talking, of course. I'll stop the stream. Let me just get rid of my book. There you go. And thank you so much for reading this book with me. It was great fun. It was lovely to revisit it. And I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Take care. Bye. Thank you, April. Bye, Shiny. Thank you. Bye, Eleanor. Bye, Muzz. Take care. Good morning, welcome to Kitely and the Learn English Network. It's Lynn here, and it's the book reading session, and I think we're going to finish the book today. I think. I said that last week, but I'm pretty certain we will today. April and I were talking earlier in Discord this morning for Monday Live Chat. I think you missed it, Moz, when we were talking about what we might read next. So our next reading will probably be a poem or a short story, just to clear this book out of our minds. And then we'll start reading The Little Prince. Okay? I don't know if you've ever read it, but we'll read it in English. Okay? It is out of copyright, I checked. Yes, well, it is a classic, and if you haven't read it, you should, and if you have read it, it's well worth reading again, okay? I actually did a session on it in my German lessons. They did a whole section on The Little Prince, so maybe I'll repurpose my German lesson and we can use some of the questions they asked me in that. In Polish and in French. Great. Okay. Well, we can add English to the list. I've read it several times, but only in English. Maybe I should read it in German.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good idea. I had also a musical. It was quite good. We did it during our French course. Didn't we, April?
I think so, but I forget that.
Yeah, about a scene with the fox and so on. Yeah.
But we haven't read the book, eh?
Not the hell, of course not, but it's not long.
Now, you say of course not. I don't understand that, because if you're going to read a book, read the whole book. I don't like excerpts. But yes, I mean,
you know, we in this I meant we don't read whole books. They are usually passages and videos, and then we move on. It's something different. It's not that advanced as your course.
it's not a course. It's just book reading. I love it.
Book
Anyway,
reading, yeah.
Talking about book reading, let's get on with it then. So, April, you're first up. If you could start reading, here's your text, okay? Ooh. April, are you with us?
Oh, sorry, I'm
muted.
unmuted.
You see, even when you've been coming to sessions for years, it can still happen.
Yeah, I was talking, and oh no, I wasn't talking.
Well, you were, but we
Okay,
couldn't hear you, so you'll have to start again, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Uh-huh. Um, Look here, Cyril, she said, sticking on her hat with long, sharp, violet-headed pins. I leave you in charge. Stay in the dressing room. You can pretend to be swimming boots in the bath or something. Say I gave you leave, but stay there, with the door on the landing open. I've locked the other. And don't let anyone go into my room. Remember, no one knows the jewels are there except me and all of you and the wicked thieves who put them there. Robert, you stay in the garden and watch the windows. If anyone tries to get in, you must run and tell the two farm men that I will send up to wait in the kitchen. I'll tell them there are dangerous. Killing them. Oh, it's a pretty decent, average, ghastly mess this time, and no mistake. He savagely made a paper boat and began to float it in the bath as he had been told to do. Robert went into the garden and sat down on the worn yellow grass with his miserable head between his helpless hands. Oh, be right back. I can't hear anything. Savagely. Okay. Uh, oh no. I'll tell them there are dangerous characters about. That's true enough. Now remember, I trust you both, but I don't think they'll try it till after dark, so you're quite safe. Goodbye, darlings. And she locked her bedroom door and went off with the key in her pocket. The children could not help admiring the dashing and decided way in which she had acted. They thought how useful has been in how useful been I don't know been in organizing escape from some of the tight places in which they had found themselves of late in consequence of their ill-timed wishes. She's a born general, said Cyril, but I don't know what's going to happen to us. Even if the girls were to hunt for that old Samiat and find it and get it to take the jewels away again, Mother would only think we hadn't looked out properly and let the burglars sneak in and get them. Or else the police will think we've got them, or else that she's been fully